Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I don't have enough education for today's show. I got two doctors. Second hour, Dr. Carrie Gress will be here. Dr. Carrie Gress, if you don't know her, doing just some fantastic work in kind of developing a new kind of, or a new creative new way of understanding feminism from a Catholic woman's perspective. She's just brilliant. You know her, and she'll be here the second hour. We're going to talk about an article she wrote recently about feminism. We're going to ask her if there is such a thing as healthy feminism and how we get to it, if there is. All that in the second hour. The first hour, another doctor, Dr. Ray Guarendi. And Dr. Ray Guarendi, you may know this, you may not, is such a big deal. He has his own Wikipedia page. And when you have your own Wikipedia page, you are really living. So I don't usually get to do this, but I'm just going to read his Wikipedia page. Dr. Ray Guarendi, a.k.a. Dr. Ray, is a practicing clinical psychologist and authority on parenting and behavioral issues, active in Catholic media, and is also a well-known author. Here, look at that. He lists some of his books. Being a grandparent, just like being a parent, only different. And then the one that, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if this is his most famous book, but it's certainly very, very popular. You're a Better Parent Than You Think, A Guide to Common Sense Parenting. Dr. Ray Guarendi from Wikipedia, it's so nice to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Well, I wouldn't be too impressed. I wrote that article.
Oh, good for you. You misspelled Guarendi, by the way, but, it's okay.
By the way, I noticed that you have someone talking about feminism the second hour. I'm assuming that I'm your model for masculine. That's what this is?
Yes, that is exactly right. You are correct.
You hesitated.
I don't know how I forgot to mention that. I apologize. Yes, we're doing the feminine virtues second hour, masculine virtues first hour, as represented by Dr. Ray Guarendi. Actually, Dr. Ray is here to help you with your parenting. So if you have parenting questions, the number is 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Oh, by the way, the Doctor is in. I didn't mention that, of course. The world famous The Doctor is in, his program on EWTN, Global Catholic Radio Network. I think it even airs in Australia.
Well, yeah, it would be world famous, galactic, probably galactic famous.
I think that's probably correct.
I would think.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I keep flubbing these important details.
Well, my people here have just told me, you do this one more time, I'm gone.
Okay, great. That will... Well, no, I don't want to say great.
I want to put any pressure on you.
All right, I'm going to be very careful now. Dr. Ray, probably the most common, whenever people ask us, could you pray for me here at Catholic Answers, and maybe in the whole Catholic media world, is my children have left the church. Can you please pray for my children to come back to the church? And so consequently, one of the most common questions we get from parents is, how do I help them make that transition from childhood into adult Christianity?
Guy, that is now the number one referral I get.
Really?
It has leaped over top of, my 8-year-old doesn't listen, my 15-year-old is rebellious. It is now the main reason people walk into my office, because their 19-year-old or 24-year-old or 31-year-old not only has left the faith, they've rejected the faith.
Right.
And in so doing, they have sometimes rejected their parents. So I deal with an awful lot of sadly beaten up parents, guilt-ridden parents, parents who think, where did we fail? It's my husband's fault. I wanted to pray the rosary in Aramaic, kneeling on broken glass while I levitated, but he let him sit on the couch. That's what it was. That's what did it. That kind of spiritual sloppiness.
Yeah, boy, man, a lot of that sounds familiar from people my age. I'm in my mid-50s, and my peer group, the kids are in that early adult years, and those are exactly the things that, and you see that between spouses a great deal too. This sense of which one of us did it, because none of the kids, it didn't take in any of the kids.
I'm going to give you good news and bad news, Si.
Okay.
The good news is you didn't do it. But I tell parents, you didn't do it. The bad news is you underestimated what did.
Which was what?
Well, never before in human history has the culture been able to come into your home like a fog and totally shape your child's thinking, your child's soul, your child's morals, your child's attitudes. Never before. In all of human history, what a child was raised with, he generally stayed with. Mom and dad and the clan and the tribe, however you define it, were the main influences in this kid's shaping. Well, not anymore. Oh, my. With technology and entertainment and social media and other kids who are being shaped this way. My son put it this way, Syed. He's 23. He didn't mean it as an excuse to say, Dad, this is why I don't listen to you. He meant it to say, Dad, because he's one of my few kids who has kind of absorbed what I taught him. He said, yours is one voice telling me how to live.
Yeah.
There are thousands telling me differently than you, Dad. And he's right.
Right.
He's absolutely right. And they're very entertaining. They're very seductive. They're very good at it. So I know you're going to ask me pretty soon, well, how does a parent deal with that, right? Because you can't just sit here and bemoan what's going on. You got to say something.
Right.
How much did you guys pay for this interview?
This is $5,000. You're getting $5,000. However, we're $5,000 short on that, so we're going to be a little short on the payment for this interview. 888-318-7884, the number if you have a question for Dr. Ray Guarendi about that, about raising kids, about how to help them, especially how to help them if as Dr. Ray just said, thousands and thousands of voices giving the contrary message, and a solitary voice or maybe just a pair of voices giving the message, the message of salvation, actually. How do you compete with that? 888-318-7884, the number to call with your questions. Okay, so, Doctor, I would say not only are you competing with these voices, but I noticed that in media, people like me are often portrayed as foolish, backwards, regressive people who value the things that I value. And so that there's a certain way in which it's not just like a competition of ideas, but the television is actively telling my children, your dad's one of these bad people.
Your dad's a doofus.
Yeah, well, which is kind of true.
Dad doesn't know much. He's incompetent.
Right.
Yes, that's very true. And all of this shaping, this radical switch has taken place in the last generation or two. For the most part, I mean, you look at the statistics from 1960. Under 5% of marriages ended in divorce. The vast majority of children were living in two-parent homes. Out-of-wedlock births were under 10%. So all the social factors that kind of tell the story of the health of a society have just plummeted. For example, in the what do they call them? Millennials. That's it. I see you get old like me, you don't even remember the names of these young people. Millennials under age 35, more are now living together than are married. So the ones that are married are not the norm.
Right.
And more out of wedlock births than in wedlock births in that group. So the culture says, here are the new morals. This is, by consensus, okay. Now, what's a parent to do? Now, fortunately, we have a lot of influence. We still do because they live with us. So
yeah.
That's big. But I tell parents, the first thing you do, okay, you got to do what you can to create the balance. In other words, you want more time for your voice to sink in, which means, one, you do not follow the cultural norms for social and technological freedom. You don't. If you do, you will get burned, almost guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you will have to be, at times, strong enough to realize your kids could resent you. They could look at you like, how can all those people be wrong, Mom, and you be right? Okay, that's very common. You will have to, as a parent, dramatically limit these voices. Parents will say to me, all he wants to do is play computer games. All he wants to do is get on the computer. And I say, well, he can want that, but why is he allowed that? And they look at me befuddled, kind of as if to say, well, isn't that what kids do? I mean, it's there. I mean, that's how they communicate with each other. She's on her phone constantly. We go to Grandma's birthday party, and we're trying to sing happy birthday to Grandma, and she's over on her phone somewhere. I just can't believe that. I told her, put your phone down, but she doesn't. Parents have to actively make these moves, because if you don't, then you would just simply let the voices shape your child.
That's that require. I know that one of the great themes of your work is that you got to have enough backbone to kind of say no to the experts, get rid of the experts don't have this all right, and so you got to kind of have the self-confidence as a parent to say, I'm not going to get this wrong. If I say put the phone down, that goes, and I don't need a team of experts to assemble to assure me that this is good parenting.
Well, what they've done to you, Si, is they've made you think, okay, fine. You assert your will over your child. You put some limits on these things that are in the top 2% of parent limits, and your kid's going to resent you. Your kid's going to rebel. Your kid's going to puke up church when he's old enough, and he's going to say, you made me go to church, that's why I'm not going. And so the parents will then look at themselves when this child is 19 or 22 and going through his rebellious rejection stage, and they're thinking, I knew it. We were too out of phase with the culture. We were weirdos. And that's what scares parents.
Yeah.
They're just afraid of the kid getting deceptive. One time we had to take 5 phones away from my daughter because she blew it. She mishandled it. She was the only freshman in her Catholic high school that didn't have a phone. Well, that's not going to happen. It's too young. So what happened was her friends gave her their old phones. And deceptively, she kept hiding them. We kept finding them. And she kept getting another one. All right? I wish she got mad enough to leave, but she didn't.
She's pretty clever, though. You got to give her that. We got to take a quick break. Dr. Ray Guarendi, our guest. We're talking about parenting today on Catholic Answers Live. So if you're on the line, hang on a quick sec. We'll be right back to take your calls for Dr. Ray Guarendi. The number 888-318-7884. 2 lines open right now. 3 lines open right now. So if you'd like to get in, 888-318-7884. Carrie Beck came by my office this morning. He goes, you know what? We extended that flash sale on those $1 20 answers booklets because lots of people have been getting themselves some 20 answers booklets. So I don't know when it's extended to. I guess through the rest of this week. You get any copy, you pick whatever Catholic Answers, 20 Answers book you want to get. You want to get one on Bible difficulties, one on Protestantism, faith and works. You want to get the ones on moral issues or on the sacraments or Mary. You pick whatever you want. They're $1 each at shop.catholic.com. A few minutes each week with our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, will help you understand and defend your Catholic faith like a boss. Get it wherever you get your podcast or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com. We Catholics just celebrated the Assumption and Coronation of Mary, so we asked Father Hugh about these important feasts, and he ended up telling us some really cool things about Mary going to heaven and being crowned queen. Also this week, the Catholic Church teaches that our justification, which can also be called getting right with God, is not a one-time thing but a process. But the letter to the Romans seems to imply that our justification might just be a one-time event. Carlo Broussard explains the truth about what St. Paul taught and why the Catholic Church gets this one right. Catholic Answers Focus is free, brand new twice a week, and now available on YouTube.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Unplanned, the true story of Abby Johnson.
I would be the youngest director in Planned Parenthood history.
She believed in a woman's right to choose.
I've had an abortion myself, so I don't have any problem with another woman making the same decision.
Until the day she saw something that changed everything.
Tiny, perfect little baby. And then it was just gone.
Now she's pulling back the curtain on the abortion industry. Unplanned.
Available at EWTNRC.com and the EWTN app.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Dr. Ray Guarendi, our guest this hour. And we're talking about parenting. Dr. Ray contributing to the lives of parents primarily by setting them free of all the expert advice they've been getting for the last several decades or more, is here with us to help you with your parenting. The number 888-318-7884. Dr. Ray, shall we go to some calls? Everybody wants to talk to you.
Will I be able to see them?
No, you'll just hear them.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to disappoint you. Marianne in Cleveland, Ohio, listening on The Rock. You are up first today, Marianne. Your question for Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Thank you for taking my call. Hey, I've always wondered this question, and Dr. Ray, you brought up that parents aren't doing as bad as they think, and that there's a thousand things in the culture that are taking their children from the faith. I always wonder, why do the Muslims seem to have such good luck? I mean, you see them walking around with large families. They're still wearing their traditional clothing, dressing modestly, having large families, staying married. I just wonder why are they having good luck keeping their kids into their faith?
Two answers for that. One, be careful by extrapolating that they are having good luck. There are figures that are indicating that more of the Muslim young people are doing this too. So that's the first thing. Secondly, their culture, by and large, is much, much tighter than Western culture. Western culture has a massive amount of individual freedom that is not permitted in Muslim cultures. A lot of them anyway. I'll share with you an example. I said to a friend of mine that I worked out with, he was a former soldier in Saddam Hussein's army. He was captured during the Gulf War. He's now working with the Marines. And I said, I forget his first name again. I said, Mahif, I said, do you have the trouble with your teenagers that we have here in the United States? And he looked at me like I had three heads. He said, not at all. I said, how is that? The average age, they push a little bit. He said, no, it is simply not permitted. I said, well, what if they do? What if they simply disobey their parents? And he said, they are out of the family. Now that is perceived as very harsh by us. But that across the culture rule kept a lot of those families intact. I'm not advocating that, but that's an explanation for why they do not have the problems we have.
Marianne, thank you so much. I appreciate the call. The number here, 888-318-7884. Dr. Ray Guarendi, our guest. We're talking about parenting, of course. And we'll go now to Matt in Columbus, Ohio. Oh, this is all Dr. Ray's friends from around Ohio calling today, listening on AM 820. Matt, go ahead. Your question for Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Hey, Dr. Ray. Sorry, before I ask, I forgot to say congratulations to Marie. Congratulations, Marie.
Okay.
And,
nice try. Marie got married. Our associate producer here, Dr. Ray, got married. And leading up to her getting married, we were giving away a free book to anyone who congratulated her. But she's married now, so no more free books.
You gotta get a page.
I'm not going for the free book. I meant to say it to her on the phone, and then I got too excited that I was on live radio.
Okay.
But, so, Dr. Ray, we're raising our children with the intent of homeschooling, with all home education. We'd like to do even the religious ed in our home, but I struggle with where we draw the line between overprotecting and validly, necessarily protecting from outside influences, the thousands of voices that you were talking about.
Matt, there is no line. It's a parent's judgment. You have to decide in your family with your children what is best. If it blows up in your face, you can regroup. I used to say that homeschooling was one option for those parents who would choose to do that. I don't say that anymore. Now I say if you want to line everything up as best you can in your favor to raise a child at your moral pace and not the culture's, you better seriously consider homeschooling. Because quite simply, more of the schools think very differently than religious people, and more of the children are being raised in a very secular way, and your kids will take in what they hear and see from those other kids. One of the reasons we homeschooled is because my son and daughter went to first and second grade, and I was shocked at what they were coming home with. The total lack of sexual innocence, the cock of the walk type attitude that my 7-year-old son was already developing, his attitude toward his first grade sister that he didn't want to be around, all of that was being shaped by the peer culture and what his peers were showing him at school.
What do you make of that, Matt?
Oh, that sounds about right. I'm a public school teacher, so that's where our main desire to keep them out of that building comes from. But yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Here's the other thing, Matt. I wanted to answer your question a little better because he said overprotective versus underprotective. Where your child's moral values are concerned, it's hard to be overprotective. You don't want to expose them to things that, in your opinion, is way too early for them. And you will have your relatives and friends telling you you should expose them because eventually they're going to be exposed. So you might as well let them see it when they're 7. That is nonsense. I always tell parents, who is better able to cope with an ugly situation, a well-formed 14-year-old or a well-formed 10-year-old? Obviously, the 14-year-old. They're going to see it. There's no way to avoid it. But you just want to delay it somewhat so they're a little more sturdy on their moral feet.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to hear you say that. I because you do hear that they're going to get exposed to it eventually. But it's treating childhood as if there's no development, as if you need time to develop, especially to cope with an absolutely insane world.
That is one of the great rationales flung at parents, which is, you can't protect them forever. It's a real world out there. They got to learn how to cope with life. And unspoken is, the earlier they learn it, the better, which is the exact opposite of the way it should be. My son went to college. First year in college, they had a list of creative writing topics. One of them was absolutely antithetically counter to the church's teaching. The prof wanted him to write about that. I said, Andrew, go ahead. And if you get an F because you don't parrot back the prof's ideology, it's not going to bother me. But at age 19, he was capable of looking at that issue and speaking to it. But if he were a freshman in high school, I don't think he would have been.
Yeah. Indeed. I have to challenge you a little bit on your endorsement of homeschooling because Harvard College Magazine this month, I don't know if you have seen the cover of Harvard. It says...
I agree with them so much.
I just want to describe it to you and get your reaction. The headline on the magazine is "The Risks of Homeschooling," and the picture is a picture of children joyfully playing, except for the homeschool child who is behind bars, literally behind bars in a house, and the only books the child has say reading, writing, arithmetic, and Bible. Does that tell you everything you need to know about Harvard's attitude towards the homeschooling family?
It's a caricature, obviously. And if Harvard were open-minded enough, okay, that's a big if, but if Harvard were open-minded enough to look at the research, I'll tell you what the research says. First of all, homeschooled children score on average at the 87th percentile of standardized state tests. Okay? Secondly, by all civil social standards, they are more socialized. They volunteer more. Their self-images are higher. Tell that to Harvard, because they're big on self-image. Their self-images are better. They are more comfortable across the age spectrum. They aren't in with 24 other 9-year-olds. So that person who threw that out with this behind the bar. Now, my children are going to be behind the bars, but it's not because they're homeschooled. Okay? I got some going to serve the church and some probably going to serve time.
Dr. Ray Guarendi is our guest. You can't even make up what a caricature Harvard made of homeschooling. So I'm glad to get your reaction to that. Hey, we're talking about parenting. Dr. Ray is willing to take your calls. I think there's only one line open right now, but you could give it a try. 888-318-7884.
We're here for you. Give us a call today on Catholic Answers Live.
What are the basic teachings of Islam? How does the Quran compare with the Bible? Does Islam really encourage violence in God's name, or is it a religion of peace? In 20 Answers Islam, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, taking a look inside Islam to reveal what its own theological authorities teach, and cutting through the ignorance and wishful thinking that are too common in our culture. 20 Answers Islam is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
To many people, even many Christians, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the church to make salvation complicated and keep people in fear. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. The Bible supports it, Christians have historically believed in it, and it makes theological sense. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I provide the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a joyful, hopeful reality, not something shadowy and mysterious, but a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
This is Dr. David Anders. Are your friends or family discouraging you from becoming Catholic?
We can help on Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. It's always fun when Dr. Ray Guarendi is here, and always helpful as well. It's a good combination, actually. 888-318-7884, our number here. Dr. Ray, of course, the author of a whole bunch of books, including quite a few that are very helpful on parenting. You're a Better Parent Than You Think, a guide to common sense parenting. It's probably one of my favorite book titles ever, Being a Grandparent. Just like being a parent, only different. And you think I'm joking, but that's the actual title of the book. Your call's welcome, of course, 888-318-7884. Let's go to Tiffany in Oklahoma City listening on Ave Maria Radio. Tiffany, delighted to have you. Your question for Dr. Ray.
Yes, thank you so much. So, Dr. Ray, what is your advice for keeping your children in the faith and learning when your spouse is still rebelling about his parents making him go to church as a child?
My grandmother came from Italy when she was 8. She went to St. Anthony's Parish in Canton, Ohio, the home of Rita Rizzo, Mother Angelica. My father was a freshman at McKinley High School when Mother was a senior. If the priest told my grandmother the way it was, she simply said, that's what the priest said, and that's the way it is. Your children will now need to explain and understand the faith. You cannot just tell them it's morally wrong or right to do something. You got to be prepared to give them a beautiful reason. That's the first thing. I tell parents over and over again, you got to be able to explain what's going on and why. If you can't do that, then the culture is going to give them their rationale, and they're going to think that rationale makes a lot more sense than anything you've said, Mom. So I think that's absolutely critical. Now, the spouse part. If you want to win your spouse over, here's the best way to do it. He has to see that your Catholic faith makes you better to live with. You're kinder, you're nicer, you're more affectionate, you serve more, you don't yell as much. All over, he's got to see that the fact that you take your faith as seriously as you do, and it makes him want to gag, it's in his best interest to have this kind of loving wife. That's the best way to do it. And explain to the kids, Dad doesn't see it this way. I'm going to explain to you how I see it, and hopefully I'll make more sense so that you'll see that this is a good way to look at it. And then you can say, and let's pray for Daddy's wretched soul. No, okay, leave that part out. Just leave that part out.
Tim, what do you think, Tiffany?
That is perfect. That is really perfect. Now, I will say my kids are 12 and 14, so we're a little late to the game. But that's great advice. Thank you.
Well, I have a book called When Faith Causes Family Friction, and in that book, I talk about what happens when you take your faith more seriously, and up to that point, your children didn't see you like that. How can you overcome that lost ground, or can you? What can you do? And I always say, better late to the game, better coming in the seventh inning than having the game be over, Tiffany. At least they got a mama who's going to pray for them. That's big.
Tiffany, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Lots of folks on the line. A couple lines open right now, 888-318-7884. Everybody on the line, we're going to get to you, though, so don't worry. Let's go to Mike right here in California, in Fair Oaks, California. You are up next, Mike. Your question for Dr. Ray Guarendi. Mike? No? All right. Well, I'm going to come back to you, Mike.
Well, wait. Don't. Can I answer it anyway?
Well, I think we're just.
This is kind of a verbal Rorschach. I can just make up the question whenever I
see.
want.
I didn't.
He was gonna ask me, why is my IQ 185? Okay, that was his question.
And you were gonna say?
And now it's 40 points below Jimmy Aiken.
Okay. Well, Mike, thanks so much for the call. I'm really glad that we were not able to hear you, and Dr. Ray made up a complete call for you. Is he there or not? Okay, we can go to Mike now. Okay, Mike, I'm glad you're awake now. Thank you for being with us.
Sorry, guys, I had you on mute.
Oh, that happens all the time. That's fine, Mike. Go ahead with your question.
Oh, my goodness.
No problem. No problem at all.
So, Dr. Ray, I am elderly, or not elderly, I'm an older parent of a 15-year-old adopted boy. And my first daughter, who's about 10 years older than him, that he adores, has come out. And now he has. And I know there's a heavy influence from his sister. And even though we're practicing Catholic, and he's been in our home for about 6 years now, we're still struggling with this and have gotten counseling and trying to get his schooling correct. But what guidance can you give us? What encouragement can you give us, especially me, because I'm frustrated that this 15-year-old thinks that he knows his sexual orientation so emphatically when I don't think he does.
Okay, Dr. Ray?
I have 2 children with same-sex attraction. Both of them are treated by us completely loving as our children. They know how we think. They know our perspective. They know our deepest held beliefs. But that makes no difference in how much we love them, how much we kiss them, how much we hug them, how much we talk to them, and how much we want them near us. Now, that said, I believe, and there's some research to indicate this, that there is a huge social component in so many children's confusion about their sexual identity. If you look at the statistics, many more children, Mike, are doing the same kind of coming out that yours are. Now, whether in fact they were predisposed genetically or hormonally, developmentally toward that, and a certain percentage of kids are. There's just no way around that. However, our culture, so much, especially the teen adolescent culture, so much applauds and nudges children who may look at that as a legitimate option for them, even though they may not have the standard same-sex attraction. I can't know that for your children, Mike. I can't say that from this distance. But what I'm saying is it's possible, and a lot of kids have done this. As they pass through the teen and adolescent years, they reverted to their heterosexual identity.
So is that, I don't know, does that mean, because we actually get this question a lot, and I'd like to have a little help in answering it from our end. Does that mean you say that to the child, or that you just wait and allow this to pass? Or
I always tell parents to talk with the child about how they've come to this conclusion.
Okay.
Was this something that was there at age 8, that they felt odd and they couldn't relate to their sex? Is this something that happened at age 13 because they got on a social media site? Is this something where with a girl, she has a really close girlfriend, which kind of slipped into, gee, I think the world of her, and so now maybe there's a bit of a sexual attraction? Explore how the child got to that point, why they think the way they do. My son, for example, we saw this very early in his life, very early. He did not identify with traditional male things. As he got older, he was confused in adolescence. He dated some girls, went nowhere with that, and ultimately in his 20s, he decided, I have same-sex attraction. He still wants to be part of the Catholic Church, so that causes some confusion for him. But at this point, we hope and we pray and we wait to see if he decides to be celibate.
Mike, is that all helpful to you?
Yeah, I was looking more for, even though that was good, and we were doing that, but I was looking more from my vantage point, because here I am, a practicing Catholic, trying not to project my disappointment when I do have communication with him.
Okay, how about dealing with the father dealing with his feelings towards his son?
That's something that dad is going to have to grapple with. You know, I can't say, here's the formula, Mike, so therefore you can snap your fingers and not have these feelings. You're going to have them. What I tell parents a lot of times is fake it. You are not condoning his behavior because you love him. Because he's still your son and you care about him as much as you ever did. We do that with my son. He's in the service now. He's 27 years old. He knows we love him terribly. We don't hang up any phone call without saying, love you. He knows it. But he also knows how we think. And over time, we've acclimated to our powerlessness. And it's simply a matter of, I'll pray, and my wife will pray, and hopefully someday he decides this is not the direction he wants to go. But right now, Mike, I think you're just rocked by the disclosure of this. But you gotta find out why your son got to the point he is. You really got to know that.
Thank you so much for the call. Dr. Ray Guarendi is our guest. The number 888-318-7884. We're talking parenting with Dr. Ray. We'll be right back to take more calls right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul's Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
He was a doctor of the church, a Carmelite, and one of the most famous mystics of all time.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. John of the Cross wanted to help all Christians to become saints. One of his most important teachings was to encourage us all to learn how to love. Where there is no love, he said, put love, and you will find love. He died in 1591.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Dr. Ray Guarendi, our guest. Dr. Ray, the author of a whole bunch of books, and he is the host of his own program on the Galactic Network. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Galactic, EWTN Galactic Radio Network?
Galactically known. I'm going for a Milky Way, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yes, somewhere aliens are getting the signal of your shows that aired,
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Because radio waves go at the speed of light.
Right.
So I've been doing this for 20 years, so them radio waves are way out there by now. Who knows?
Right, helping parenting all over the galaxy. Dr. Ray Guarendi.
That's right.
Yep, that should be on the ad. Let's go to Sally in Salem, Oregon, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM Satellite Radio. Sally in Salem, Oregon, your question for Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can, Sally. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm a great-grandma, and my little 2-year-old great-grandson is an absolute hellion. I don't know how else to, he's as cute as a bug's ear, but he doesn't mind. He looks at you and does what he's not supposed to do and just dares you to do something about it. You can slap his hand, you can spank his butt, you can put him in timeout, and he doesn't care. And in fact, he won't stay in timeout when his mother puts him there. She has to sit down and hold him in order to keep him in timeout. So I don't know what to do with him. I mean, I want to turn him over my knee, but that's the old-fashioned way. I don't know what to do.
All right, Sally, thank you.
Sally, you sound surprised that this 2-year-old is totally unsocialized. I'll bet he doesn't even have a conscience yet. I'll bet he has no morals. I'll bet he's completely self-centered. He's 2. You said the key thing, Sally. Your daughter cannot get him to accept discipline. Here would be my suggestion. She tells him to sit on the steps, go to the corner, whatever she uses for timeout. When he doesn't go, no problem. She simply tells him everything he asks for after that is no. You have to sit on the steps first. No, you can't have your favorite stuffed animal. You have to sit on the steps first. No, you can't color. You have to sit on the steps first. No, I took your blocks. You have to sit on the steps first. Trust me, he will listen. What is happening in my mind, and this happens, I'd say about 98.6253% of the time, the parent is simply shell-shocked that the kid is pushing on them and they're not being consistent or firm enough.
Okay, Sally?
Definitely. I know that is true. It's not consistent enough.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the perils of parenting,
See,
Sally.
She said that in one sentence, and I took 4 minutes to get there.
She was summarizing. That was summarizing. Thanks, Sally. Appreciate it. Let's go to Elise in Sibley, Illinois, listening to EWTN on 89.5 FM. Elise, are you there with us?
Yes, I am with you.
Hello.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you
Yes.
fine. You go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray.
Hello.
Hi, Elise.
Now I lost you guys.
Well, we can still hear you. So again, Dr. Ray will just make up a question. If you don't ask a question, he'll just make one up. So you might as well just give it a try. Get it out.
Shoot, I don't know why you're going in and out all of a sudden. Gosh darn it. I do have a question.
Go ahead. We hear you fine, Elise.
I'm going to try. Oh, shoot. I can't. I'm having a hard time. Let me step out of my car here.
Okay,
No.
yeah. So this is fun for everybody. You have step out. Let's
Well,
try.
here's the question. Sai, here's the question she has.
Yeah.
Why do your headphones not mess up your hair and mine mess up my hair?
Okay, the obvious answer is you have hair. That's the big difference.
You got hair? No, you got hair. You keep it buzzed.
Yeah, I got the buzz cut, right? Because I'm so lazy, I can't even bother with brushing or combing my hair. I'm like,
Your teeth? You
just
can't
cut it
even
off.
bother with brushing your teeth?
Pull the teeth, cut the hair. That's my theory of grooming. Okay, Elise, has this worked out? Are you now holding on to a piece of tinfoil, or what are we doing now?
Yeah, it's probably true. Where we live here, we probably do have tinfoil for radio towers, but I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, thank you. So, question is about my 21-year-old daughter. So, she's our only daughter. So she lives in Chicago. She's in an apartment complex. And her boyfriend lives on the second floor. She lives on first floor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is after kind of a long series of, she had completed a couple of years at Columbia College. She's a music student, very good music, just like her dad. And anyway, and she was working for a music company up there. She's also working in dentist office. So I guess long story short, she was raised Catholic
It's
here.
too late for that.
You can't say long story short after that. Elise, I'm sorry. We're being wise guys with you. So I get the picture. The picture I'm getting is she lives in the same apartment with a building with her boyfriend. And now she's tepid in the faith, and you want Dr. Ray to help with that. Am I in the ballpark, Elise?
That's it.
Yep. All right.
Good word. Tepid.
Thank you.
I think that's.
I
think
keep a
that's the word
thesaurus
that
on the desk.
St. John used that. Ask Jimmy Aiken.
Right.
It's tepid. It's a translation. Here's the thing, Elise. She knows how you raised her. She knows what you tried to teach her. She knows what the church teaches. She has just said, I'm in a situation where I want to do what I want to do. I'm sure that you have talked to her. What you're really saying is not, do I talk to her? Because you already have. What you're saying is, how do I talk to her to make her understand? And at this point, I think you're best just to keep your mouth shut. Because as you approach this over and over again, one, she tunes you out because she doesn't want to hear it. Two, you can't do anything about it because you're several states away. And three, if she's weak in the faith, then to say to her, your faith says this is wrong, is meaningless. So at this point, you just got to hope that she comes to realize, or that she marries the guy, or that she breaks up with the guy, because we can probably be pretty certain that she's having relations. So let me give you a statistic that's rather, well, you would probably know this because you get a whole bevy of experts coming through the show. What percentage of people do you think surveys show have entered marriage as virgins?
Oh, man. Honestly, I don't know. That's why I need experts, because I don't know this stuff. I don't know. What is it? Is it?
Three.
What?
3.
I don't.
Yep.
I truly am speechless. 3%. Wow.
That doesn't shock me.
It surprises me.
I have more people calling to interview me, and I'll just,
it's better
probably
choices.
one of those.
Yeah.
It's Fox News. I'll let them go.
Fox News is like 3%. We got to talk to Dr. Ray. Okay, so what you're saying then? What the point then of only 3% are entering marriage without having as virgins. So
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
So
here's my point. Oftentimes parents think, I've got to keep reasoning with them. I've got to keep inviting the subject up again. You can't. At some point, what happens is you actually make it worse. You deteriorate the relationship because she doesn't want to hear it, Mom. Let it go, Mom. And I don't think you like my boyfriend, Mom. So what you got to do is you got to do your very best to keep that relationship intact so that you do have some influence if and when she decides, I don't like the way I'm doing this.
Elise?
guys. I heard most of that. Just having a hard time hearing you. But thank you.
You can listen to it on playback.
Dr. Ray, I'd like to listen to you.
Yeah. You can listen.
Lise, thank you.
You can listen to it on the playback. Just go to Catholic.com. It's 1 minute after the show is over. It's all available to listen to again. Elise, thank you very, very much. Appreciate that call. Of course, Dr. Ray Guarendi, our guest, is world famous. He's got his own Wikipedia page. He's written all the books, and he is the host of The Doctor Is In on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Intergalactic Radio Network. I'm going to go to this anonymous caller now. Okay, I just needed to let the call screener know. We're going to anonymous caller. Anonymous, are you there with us?
Am I on?
Anonymous, you are on the air with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Okay, thank you. So I'm 15, and in October I will be having RCIA classes to be baptized.
Well, thank God.
My mom, who is not Catholic, is willing to do that for me. I'm worried that after I am baptized, she won't take me to Mass every Sunday. And is that a sin on my part?
Nope. It's very simple, my friend. It is not. Until you are able to drive or walk or maybe take a bus, call Uber. If you have no other options, you can certainly watch Mass on television. Okay, EWTN always has Mass on television, as well as many, 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 many live streaming priests who offer Mass. But you are not responsible if you have no way to get there, especially because you're a juvenile, a youngster. Now, let's do this. Here's what your mom needs to see, and this is kind of what I said earlier. Your mom needs to see that because you joined the Catholic faith, this boy that she is raising is more respectful, he's more cooperative, he's more complimentary, he does his work, he's just an overall great kid. And I believe if she sees that, and she attributes that to your faithfulness, she'll take you to Mass, because it'll be in her best interest to keep you going to Mass.
What do you make of that, Anonymous?
That's good. Thank you.
That is good.
All
Well,
right,
you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for calling and letting us know. And I hope you will take Dr. Ray's advice. But God bless you as you come into the church. Thank God we need you, and I'm so glad you're coming.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy. See you.
I don't even know how that
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I feel like I was as mature as that guy maybe by the beginning of this hour.
I was going to say last year. Yeah. But once again, I am carrying your dead spiritual backside.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Somebody's got to do it.
It's all right.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned homeschooling before. A lot of people are, I don't want to say involuntarily, but somewhat involuntarily homeschooling. You got any words of wisdom in the last 60 seconds we got you here?
Don't be intimidated.
Okay.
Homeschooling is a lot easier than people think. The first thing moms will say is, I can't believe how much work we get done in 2 hours, and they were in school for 6 hours. So it is, and there's all kinds of stuff out there to help you. There's online stuff, there's curricula. You're not in this alone. You can get tutors, you can get co-ops. There's all kinds of ways to work your way through this. You don't have to be the mom sitting at the kitchen table for 4 hours.
When you say that about they get done in 2 hours, it takes a whole school, it gives you a little bit of a sense that part of the purpose of the school day is other than just education. Some of it is a little bit of warehousing going on there.
And the fact that they got to teach to a whole group.
Oh, yeah.
So they got to keep everybody on pace.
Right.
But if your kid is bright and can scoot on ahead, you just go at the pace.
Yeah, that was, in public school, I often felt that I was holding back the brighter kids. They had to...
Well, you hold me back this whole hour.
Sorry about that, Dr. Ray. I know you deserve much better, but this is the best we had today. Dr. Ray Guarendi, the author of many things. You can find him at drray.com and listen to his program on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. The Doctor Is In. Dr. Ray, I really, in all sincerity, thank you very much. It's always a great hour when you're on.
Thank you, Sally. I appreciate it. Bye.
Bye. Another doctor coming up. It's probably, I don't know if she'll make me feel as bad as Dr. Ray does about my lack of education, but Dr. Carrie Gress here. We're going to talk about feminism, and we're going to talk about the relationship between Jesus, the Catholic Church, and true feminism. We'll do that when we come back right here on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live on this Monday of this. It's a, what, you know what I'm going to call this, Nick? A cavalcade of PhDs. That's what it is today. Dr. Ray Guarendi, first hour, Dr. Carrie Gress this hour. And as promised, we're going to talk a bit about feminism. Dr. Carrie Gress, you can find her at carriegress.com. You can also find her at, just type into your Google machine, the Theology of Home. You'll find her book and the website, Theology of Home. Dr. Carrie Gress, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm excited about, I mean, you're well, first of all, congratulations I apologize. Congratulations on child number 5. I just want to go right into your writing, but you're producing better works than writing as well.
I am. Miraculous things are happening. So yeah, little John is 6 months old. So
wow,
it's been really a delight. Yeah.
Do you call him Little John?
Little John, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
He's got all kinds of nicknames.
Do you have any named Robin Hood? Do you have any children named Robin Hood?
I just have a Robert.
Oh, you have a Robert.
Robin Hood.
All right.
Yeah, close.
Well, you're the work you're doing now. I mean, people know you from all kinds of work that you've done, including the Marian option.
Right.
But the work you're doing now is kind of. It almost seems like a rescue mission to me in a way that you're on. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I kind of like that term for it. It sort of feels that way. Yeah. I like that.
It seems like there's a vision of womanhood that actually attacks what's real about women, about families, about marriages, and all of that. And that you're trying to recover a whole and healthy vision of womanhood so that the whole society can become healthy again.
Yeah, no, that's a very good summation of really the work I've been doing since my book, The Anti-Marry Exposed. And I think that book, I've had this desire to really reach the hearts of women for a long time, but I just didn't know how to do it. And I think a lot of my study was kind of directed at that. I didn't really want to go into women's studies with my PhD. In fact, I didn't want to at all. I think I said aloud at one point, I will not work on women's issues as a philosopher. So it's kind of ironic that I've cycled back to it, but in a totally different direction, because, by and large, because I've realized that logic and reason are really not the place where you evangelize women, and it's just it's not bearing fruit, largely because we're a very kind of post-logical culture. So I've been looking at how do we evangelize them then, and I think that's kind of what I've stumbled upon through a lot of prayer and a lot of mistakes and, doing things the wrong way. I feel like I'm kind of doing things the right way, but the only thing that I'm doing is copying what people have been doing in secular culture really for 50 years, except changing the message instead of it being, a medium of awful things, ideas from Margaret Sanger and from Karl Marx. I'm trying to sort of reintroduce into the culture beautiful things, that are life-giving, and doing that through magazines and books and whatnot. So it's been really fun.
This is what this recent article that you did in the National Catholic Register. Have we been doing? The headline on this: have we been doing Catholic women's messaging wrong? And you talk about, and I think this is true of Catholic Answers as much as it's true of anything else, that there's a tendency in Catholic media to be very head-centered and to be men talking to men in a way. And I don't take offense that you said that. I think that you're just pointing out what is basically true about the medium. And where is our Catholic Oprah, so to speak?
Right. And I'm glad you don't take offense to that, because I certainly didn't mean it to be offensive in any way. I think it's just a reality when you look around at who's, calling the shots and what is being published and how things are being published and who the speakers are and whatnot. They're kind of neutral or more masculine. And so, I think absolutely just this question of where's the Catholic Oprah, where's the Catholic Joanna Gaines? We just don't have, we have a real dearth in those lifestyle areas. And I think we have kind of over-intellectualized the faith, which is, to me, a real tragedy, because we have these incredible ideas that women are longing for. In fact, many women are dying for them, quite literally. because we're not giving them the information that they need for real flourishing. And I think that that's just the tragedy that we have, is that we haven't found the right way to sort of reach the hearts of women, and much of it has to go back to things that I think we often kind of dismiss as really fluffy, talking about relationships or talking about cosmetics, talking about our homes, talking about clothing, all of those kinds of things. I think are important to women. In fact, I did a podcast recently with Robert Royal and at the Catholic Thing, his new podcast. And after we got off the end of the show, he said, that thing you said about magazines, how much women love magazines. My wife will come home from the grocery store sometimes and she'll have magazines. And I say to her, they're online. Why don't you just look them online?
No.
But there's something about the pages, there's
right.
turning the pages and flipping through it and sort of feeling like you're kind of escaping the world and inspired and feeling creative by that. And I just don't think that we're doing that well as Catholics, which, there's a lot of room for us to be able to do that because we understand what it means to be incarnational. We understand what it means to hold material in right order instead of, making it just about vanity or making it just about appearances. We know how to use those things properly because of the faith. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. We could just sort of start seeing how important this is really to reaching women, instead of them, being allowed to sort of fall into these traps that have been set for us by the culture, because it's really so predominant, this messaging that women get. And I certainly didn't realize it until I wrote The Marian Option, the Anti-Mary Exposed.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how pervasive the message was and that there's not really an alternative to it. And I think that's what we need to see here is an alternative to what's out there.
Our number is 888-318-7884. Dr. Carrie Gress is our guest, has not been with us for a good long while, and I'm sure that part of that is our fault. But also, you were having another baby, so maybe some of it was your fault too. I don't know, but
I wrote a book, had a baby. I've been busy.
I was doing practically the same thing. Just take out the book and the baby. I was up to the same stuff. 888-318-7884. If you want to talk about feminism, if you want to talk about what Jesus has to do with feminism, what the Catholic Church has to do with feminism, and about a wholesome, healthful, and rooted in reality view of womanhood and women. Dr. Carrie Gress is the person to talk to, and we'd love to talk with you. 888-318-7884. I'm just going to one of the things that Dr. Gress is responsible for with, and you have a circle of people around you, or maybe that you're a part of. I shouldn't maybe even say around you that help with Theology of Home. But okay, so I just clicked on last Thursday's edition of Theology of Home. Look at this: how to choose the right homeschool curriculum for your family. That's Article 1. Article 2, Grandma's Zucchini Bread. Article 3, Dying for Jesus. Article 4, Castle for Sale, Chateau du... I don't know how to say it. The next article, Jesus taught us to see God as Father and as no one ever had before. And it goes on and on like that, so that you get this is... As a matter of fact, I'm going to just say it right now. This is the most wholesome website on the internet, because that's what happens each day is you get this... I don't know. It's like life. You're not categorizing it into put religious stuff that would just or zucchini bread. It all goes in the same pot, and it's all very appealing and exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's kind of how we live our lives. I mean, this is one of the things that women do so well is we shift gears really quickly mentally from one topic to the next. I mean, if you listen to a woman's conversation, we can jump from talking about something very sad to a new book to what's going on with our kids, very, very quickly. I know when I got married, actually, it's pretty funny because I was used to doing that all the time. And my husband was like, well, what does that topic have to do with this topic? And I had to sort of mentally or, audibly say, I'm switching topics now, because he just wasn't following that I was jumping topics all the time. So I think that's, part of why magazines appeal to us, because they have this variety of different things that sort of touch us in different ways, but they help us too. They can provide tips. They give us things to think about, things to chew on, different ideas for our home, all of that. And I think that that's how most of us sort of operate in our lives, is on all of these different levels. And so to sort of strip many of those things out isn't really a service. And again, like I said previously, we have the capacity to put these things back in, but especially if you look at things like the great feasts of, Easter and Christmas, and even how we arrange our Lents and Advents, and that feasting and fasting element, we have gotten spades. So to really pull those elements out, I think, are important too. So, yeah, it's one of these projects that when I first started doing it, I actually felt really guilty. It was like, this is really fun. I'm having way too much fun with it. And then I realized, I felt like, I've got to get back to doing more serious academic work. And yet that's where, I'm like so many other women, that we want to do the fun stuff. There's so much heaviness in our world, but it's these kinds of things that help us feel creative and energized, and instead of feeling like we either need to like bury our head in the sand, or that the world is, going to end tomorrow kind of feeling. And I think that that's what we get a lot from any kind of media at this point.
Yeah.
So to provide something that's kind of a balm for that, that's kind of an alternative to that, where you don't feel depressed walking away from it, but you feel sort of energized, and have new things to think about or talk about or whatever throughout the day. Most people read it in the morning, actually, is that we can tell from the statistics that's how a lot of people are starting their day. So it's, what better way to start than to read things that are interesting and uplifting rather than really negative.
The website, by the way, that Dr. Carrie Gress is referring to is theologyofhome.com. You can get it. Actually, they'll send you an email each day. I get the email each morning that tells you what's on tap for that day on Theology of Home. It's a wonderful aggregation of stuff. You're just never going to see stuff that comes together like this. It's for women. I know that. I get that. But it's not.
We have a lot of men that read it.
Yeah.
So that's.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I want to defend my masculinity, but it's really good.
No.
It's just really good. Yeah. Like if you put Castle for Sale is one of your articles, men are going to read that. As a matter of fact, more men are going to read that one than women. 888-318-7884, the number. We have to take a quick break, so I'm going to let you dial. There's a couple folks on the line, but there's a couple lines open, and we'll let callers talk to Dr. Carrie Gress. I do want to warn you, however, before I go to calls, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask Dr. Carrie Gress what she means by the matriarchy. There is a kind of messaging to women starting at a very young age about this is what liberated and actualized and enlightened womanhood is. And it's actually quite destructive. But I don't want to talk about that. So we'll talk about a little bit of the hard stuff when we come back, and then take your calls on any aspect of having to do with feminism, and especially as that relates to our Catholic faith. 888-318-7884. Quick break. Right back with more Dr. Carrie Gress right after this. A few minutes each week with our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, will help you understand and defend your Catholic faith like a boss. Get it wherever you get your podcasts, or listen anytime at CatholicAnswersFocus.com. We Catholics just celebrated the Assumption and Coronation of Mary, so we asked Father Hugh about these important feasts, and he ended up telling us some really cool things about Mary going to heaven and being crowned queen. Also this week, the Catholic Church teaches that our justification, which can also be called getting right with God, is not a one-time thing but a process. But the letter to the Romans seems to imply that our justification might just be a one-time event. Carlo Broussard explains the truth about what St. Paul taught and why the Catholic Church gets this one right. Catholic Answers Focus is free, brand new twice a week, and now available on YouTube.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
I've seen the power of prayer many times in my life. I believe you will too if you commit to spending time with God every single day. Prayer changes things. Prayer moves God's heart. This doesn't mean that we can control or manipulate Him, but as His children, He wants us to express our wants, our needs, our desires, and our trials and our joys. He already knows them all, so enunciating them helps us to see when and how God answers our prayers in powerful ways.
Dr. Carrie Gress is our guest. You can find her at carriegress.com, where you'll find her articles. You can find her work and the spirit of what she does at theologyofhome.com. Matter of fact, I do highly recommend it to you. It's one of the really cool corners of the internet. It provides by aggregating articles together that you might not think all go together. I think provides a window into a new way of actually living your life. So we're happy to have Dr. Gress with us. If you want to talk about feminism, if you think we're off our rocker, you're welcome to call and tell us that, 888-318-7884. If you do call to say that, I will run and hide and cry, and Dr. Gress will deal with you. But we're happy to take your calls. I said before I went to callers, and I am going to come to you callers, don't worry. I wanted to ask you about this idea of the matriarchy and this idea that there's a vision of an empowered woman now that kind of Oprah, kind of Beyonce, maybe at one point we would have said Madonna. I don't know. This image, as attractive as it is actually deadly. And so I can think of maybe I might want to share some of what you write with young women, and I can see, well, they might reject it because they are in this other vision of womanhood. So help me out with that. What is this matriarchy about, and why do we have to kind of break through it?
Right. Well, the matriarchy is a term that I developed when I was writing The Anti-Marry, because I started noticing just how overreaching this one very narrow and actually very twisted understanding of womanhood is in the culture, and much of it's based on sort of this schizophrenic relationship that women currently have with men, where the idea being that we want to be just like men, but we also want men to change. Men can't be men; they have to be more like women, and kind of this erasing of genders and all of this. A lot of this goes back to the 1960s, 70s. All of this is laid out in my book for those that want a lot more details on it. But it's if you look at pop music, if you look at Hollywood, if you look at politics, if you look at the fashion industry, if you look at magazines, all of it is the same message that you can't really be a real woman unless you're pro-choice, that your careers should be the most important thing in your life. Children are an obstacle to your happiness, and men are an obstacle to your happiness. So what they've created is sort of this radical, individualistic, very narcissistic kind of woman, and a lot of confusion about our sexuality in terms of how it's used and abused and manipulated or manipulating. So when you start seeing that picture of what it is that women are consuming every day through all of these same branches, and sounds like conspiracy theory. Some of it's just orchestrated by things like the birth control industry. I mean, they've been a huge factor behind this in terms of their money funding projects like this. But, the slip sort of shows when you see things like the Women's March that was done, where they were welcomed any woman unless you were pro-life. So you can see that's really where the breakdown happens. But I think that what's fascinating about it, too, is to see how they've put women who don't agree with them, they've painted us into being just doormats, having no personality, no life, kind of the Stepford wife, or even The Handmaid's Tale is another great visual that they've kind of conjured up that people now immediately think of that. In fact, I had one woman, I wrote an article, a Catholic woman that I know and respect, she immediately made some connection with the Stepford wife, or the Handmaid's Tale. And I just thought it was so interesting that of all the things throughout history and literature that I know that she knows, that she chose that as an image to sort of contrast my work with. And yet it's, all of that is just a fabrication to sort of make it appear that women that don't agree with them are disordered and crazy or freakish or, anything negative, I think is really the case. And so I think that that's one of the saddest realities, is we haven't offered women another way to think about themselves in a much healthier way, and recognizing that this narcissism and this constant chasing after careers and relationships that are empty and all of these kinds of things that are actually not going to lead to happiness. And I'm hearing a lot of stories too from women who have bought into this over the years. And it's really tragic because, women, you get to a certain point and you just know, even if you get married, you're not going to have a handful of children. You're not going to be able to do these things that you thought you wanted to do, but time has sort of passed you by. And, the most tragic is sort of that woman that she doesn't have parents anymore and she doesn't have children. So she's sort of in this no man's land as an older woman without real family around her. And, how do you structure your life without those things that are typically and traditionally and, are meant to be there throughout our life? Have them absolutely not exist is a very difficult thing.
That's the worry, is that the ideology can only take you so far, but then you end up with a broken heart.
Yeah, no, I think undoubtedly. And, so much of it is Marxism. So much of it actually is the occult and paganism. There's all these different tentacles to it. But at the end of the day, it truly is an ideology that's at work there in terms of just making women kind of their own worst enemy.
888-318-7884. The number, if this is your experience and you'd like to discuss it with Dr. Carrie Gress, you're welcome to call. Or if you think that Dr. Carrie Gress is on the wrong track, you're also welcome to call. We encourage vigorous, spirited, and if we can, charitable conversation here, representing all sides. 888-318-7884. Let's go to Sandra in Denver, Colorado, listening on 1060 AM. Sandra in Denver, you there with us?
I am.
Hello. Your question or comment for Dr. Gress?
A question. Well, I guess a comment first.
Okay.
In our society, there's so much polarization, and it's so easy to see someone who doesn't agree with me as my enemy, and even as someone evil. And when I think of the whole abortion issue, I know that abortion is wrong, but I don't think that the typical woman who chooses to have an abortion decides, I feel like doing something blatantly evil today. So there's something about it that they're trying to pursue a good of some kind. And so rather than battling, head on pro-life and pro-choice, is there a common ground anywhere that both the pro-life woman and the pro-choice woman are both trying to pursue? And maybe by identifying that common ground, maybe then we can actually move in the same direction instead of against each other.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that is an incredible point. And no, absolutely. No woman, I've heard people describe it as a woman that's seeking an abortion. She feels trapped, like an animal feels trapped. That there's this panic and adrenaline and all these influences. And a lot of time there's a lot of outside pressure as well. So I think you're right it's such a difficult issue. But I'm really glad you asked about the common ground piece, because that's been really, by and large, the idea behind Theology of Home, especially the book that I've published with my co-author, Noelle Mehring. And what we lay out in that book is really this idea of home. And I think this is what happens with magazines and with, Food Network and HGTV and all of these kinds of things. They create a medium where people feel common ground. Unfortunately, a lot of times this platform is abused and used in negative ways too, for negative messaging and whatnot. But I think that this is something that, we all have people in our life with whom we disagree. So finding topics that we can agree on, something as fundamental as the idea of home, is a really important thing. And that's what we try to do with our book, Theology of Home, is just to recognize that this is a universal principle that we can all kind of be dialed into in one way or another. And that recognizing that creates a space where people can actually start trusting each other beyond this sort of combativeness that you just described. So I think that that's an important element. Even if we're not, even if you don't read my book, Theology of Home, I think we can all find areas in our lives where we can connect with people and be human to them. That's been the fun thing about this book, Theology of Home, is that I can give it to anyone, because what it does is it looks at what the reasons why we love our homes so much, not necessarily how to decorate them, but why we love them so much and the elements of it. So that's been a fun thing for me, because a lot of my books I can't give to just anybody, of course. A lot of them are pretty polemical. But I think that that's a really vital thing that we have to do, and why something like a Catholic women's magazine could be really great for a conversation, because of the fact that it would provide space for us to talk about things in a different way instead of just constantly talking about life issues and whatnot. We can kind of create room for trust with each other on different topics.
It's kind of a way out of a trap, isn't it? Where instead of always fighting, now you're talking about the things that really matter. Dr. Carrie Gress is our guest. 888-318-7884 is our number. Sandra, thank you very much for the call. We'll be right back with more calls for Dr. Gress right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Who are the Jehovah's Witnesses, and what do they believe? How do you respond to their claims that God isn't a Trinity and Jesus isn't divine? What's the best way to evangelize Jehovah's Witnesses when they come knocking at the door? In 20 Answers, Jehovah's Witnesses, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, giving you the knowledge you need to respond to friends, family, and missionaries who try to steer you away from the church and into Kingdom Hall. 20 Answers Jehovah's Witnesses is part of the 20 Answers series at Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Have you subscribed to the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter? This is Catholic Answers Live host Cy Kellett, and I want to tell you about our new weekly newsletter full of behind-the-scenes information and facts you need to know about the show. It's easy to sign up. Just visit CatholicAnswersLive.com and look for the newsletter sign-up box on the front of the page. It's a great way to keep up to date with what's happening with the show and see what's coming in the days ahead, delivered weekly into your inbox. Sign up today for the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter and see what you've been missing. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com.
To many people, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the church. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I'll give you the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Dr. David Anders here. Where is purgatory in the Bible? Why confess my sins to a priest?
Find out more tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on Call to Communion.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I think we might have scared all the men off today, but you're welcome to call if you're a man as well. If you have a question, you don't have to have a question. You're just welcome to call 888-318-7884. We're discussing feminism, and Dr. Carrie Gress, our guest, has been doing really extraordinary work in building kind of a new approach to women to share the depth and beauty of the Catholic faith, in great part as a remedy to the image of women that is being peddled and kind of, in a certain sense, imposed in many places on young women and on all women and on men as well. I have to say the male view of womanhood and femininity is greatly changed, I think, by the images that media are presenting. And so you're welcome to call with your questions or your challenges, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Dr. Gress, maybe one of the things I think that people don't like to talk about femininity because I suppose there's a way in which, in a weird way, feminism is opposed to femininity. That feminism kind of wants a sameness about all people, and so doesn't want there to be any such thing as masculinity and femininity. except in an accusatory way. So maybe you could talk about femininity, the quality itself, and some of the elements of it that we don't talk about, that we don't discuss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this has been a really interesting piece to me because I actually wrote a short piece for Magnificat, that little, liturgical magazine that people have. And it was 200 words, very short. I was just talking about kind of the positive attributes of women. And I was amazed at how many people responded to that article. I get responses a lot, but this was one that just was, for such a short piece, I was really surprised by it. And what I described in it was this concept of women. This is a very ancient concept. It was nothing new here to me in terms other than just kind of reiterating it and pulling pieces together. But this concept of recognizing that women have this great capacity for holding things. There's all this imagery, even in the Romance languages. You can see words like a ship. This is why ships and boats are always named for a woman. They're feminine. They hold things. They carry life. The ocean is always a feminine name, or is a feminine word as well for what it carries. Any references to vessels and things like that. And even the church, we have the main part of the church is called the nave, which of course comes from the word ship. So there's all these elements. And then, if you obviously look at a woman's body, she has a uterus, and of course that holds a child. Even our arms are bent slightly so that we can cradle a child more easily. So I think that these are things that we've really forgotten. Edith Stein has some beautiful quotes about the woman's soul and how we carry people in our souls. We shelter them so that they can have life in a very real way. And these concepts like tenderness or even pregnancy, all of these have become very negative or kind of taboos in the culture that women are rejecting about themselves. And yet these are the most beautiful aspects of women. And I know as a mother, of course there's the biological aspect, but more importantly, there's also that element of, I pray for my children. I feel like they're kind of, I'm always carrying them with me mentally and, even when I'm not doing it physically. So I think that that's a piece. And even just recognizing that women do that for men as well. There's sort of, looking at music and the way, and poetry, all of these ways that men speak of women, she's sort of a safe harbor, or there's something about her that's compassionate and softening, and that has a healing element to it. And I think that these are the kinds of things that we've really forgotten about, and we don't recognize, and we're certainly not telling our daughters about them, and helping them understand the richness of capacities that we have and the many, many different ways that these can be expressed. Because certainly not all women are called to biological motherhood, but all women are called to a spiritual motherhood of others. And it's this capacity to give others life mentally or physically or emotionally, intellectually, all these different ways that we've been gifted to do that.
How much do you think, in a certain way, the way it worked out as far as the feminist revolution is it got tied to, and I'm saying this because I don't personally believe that it was inevitable, but it got tied to a sexual revolution that was profoundly promiscuous. It was not necessarily what makes a woman's life better, a man either, but this isn't what women are looking for. Is I really what we need to make life better is more promiscuity, but also got tied to consumerism and money and wealth and getting. That it seems to me that has left everybody, men and women, exhausted and broken.
Yeah. No, and this is actually the next Theology of Home 2 that's coming out in October. We really dive into this concept of power versus fruitfulness in women, because there's obviously a big difference between a woman who's driven by power and a woman who understands fruitfulness in her own life. And we certainly can't understand the Virgin Mary even without understanding fruitfulness. So it's a pretty important concept for us to understand. But the power element is something that I think is really what's behind it. And that's why we're all exhausted, because it's exhausting sort of exerting your own will on other people, and rather than having a humility and a receptivity, an active receptivity, but a receptivity to the people around you.
Man, I can just see some people, steam coming out of their ears when you talk about receptivity. Come on. That does not
I know,
fit
it's
with
almost as bad as submission.
Oh, no, we're not. Don't try to get me fired. Let's go.
The hate mail you're going to get. I know.
Let's go to Sierra in Raleigh, North Carolina. Listen, but the thing, let me just go back to submission for a minute. As a man, if I do not submit to something higher than me, what kind of a human being am I? What kind of a man am I? Yeah. But when you say that to a woman, what kind of a woman are you? If you no, that's well, all right. Sorry. Let's go to Sierra. I'm sorry I kept you waiting, Sierra. Raleigh, North Carolina, listening on Divine Mercy Radio. Glad to have you with us, Sierra. Your comments or question for Dr. Carrie Gress.
Well, thank you so much for taking my call, and I would like to say hello to Dr. Gress. I found your work on Amazon, and I used to be a feminist, and I went to college as neutral and kind of not wanting to be a feminist, and then in college they explained feminism to me, and I was like, oh, that sounds right. I guess I want good things for men and women. And then I started to notice that it was actually nothing good for men. It was just, and it wasn't really good for women either. And once I started to push back against these narratives that it was good, I found that people didn't want to listen anymore. Like the second I pushed back against feminism, it was as if I was I was putting forward patriarchy, and I was a misogynist, and I'm like, where are all these names coming from? I agreed with you yesterday. And and so my question is, it seems like you have more experience with communicating with people who identify as feminists, and how to start dialogues with them, and I guess like an entry point in to start these conversations, because feminism isn't helpful to women, and it's actually harmful because there's so many older women who are yelling that they used to be feminists and now they're older and alone. So
Sierra, I really I particularly like the question about where's the entry point, and I'd like to get, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear what Dr. Gress says about that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think you're exactly right. That it's incredibly hard to talk about these things, especially because there is so much language built up on their side, and there are words like patriarchy that they just have to say the word patriarchy, and everybody's like, oh, that's bad. There's no dialogue about, well, what do you mean by patriarchy anymore? It's just very much sort of this unmitigated evil in their eyes and experience. And that's really why I have pivoted away from trying to engage on that level and on those topics. I think, if we look at the history of the faith, it's been passed on by people that love other people immediately in their life. So what I mean is, women passing it on to their husbands, fiancés, sons, in-laws, that kind of thing. And that happens just by daily interaction and engagement with people. And this is one of the things I think is sort of the best kept secret about Catholic women is we're really happy women. This doesn't mean that we don't have sorrow and struggles in our lives, but we have a relationship with God. And so there's a sense of who we are. We know we're loved, and we have we have this joy in our lives. And this is what these women don't have. So I think that tackling it head on is probably not the best. It's not going to be very effective. I think we have to tackle it by just making our own argument, whether it's an individual life well lived, or by publishing a magazine that has gorgeous pictures of beautiful families, and a woman, living her life out in accordance with the Catholic Church. I mean, that's what we don't have, and that's what we've done with Theology of Home, is to try and put, I talk about it as we put all the pictures in the book that women aren't supposed to see, where men are doing manly things, or where they're being great dads, or they're, spending time with their whole family, and, that kind of thing. I think in the culture we are so busy focusing on just the woman and the career, and maybe a child or two will enter in, but certainly not big families and that kind of thing. So, and I think that when people see those kinds of pictures and images, there's something much more powerful. Something's happening on a much deeper level than, if you're getting people angry at you and debating over the word patriarchy. That seems to be sort of settled in their minds. I think it's a question of kind of fighting their narrative, but doing it in a way with things that are compelling, that they deep down, most of them really do want. They just don't know how to get it when they think they don't understand that they're not on the path that can lead to those things necessarily, but that it has to come in accordance with human nature and what it is that God, the plan that God has laid out for our lives.
Sierra, thank you very much. I have to take a quick break, and we got lots and lots of folks on the line, so we're going to come back and take more calls for Dr. Carrie Gress on feminism today on Catholic Answers Live.
Bringing you the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
St. John Paul II stated that, for the disciple of Christ, evangelization is a duty, an obligation of love, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that evangelization is necessary for salvation.
So we know we're called, but how do we do it?
St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. To learn more, contact us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
Once you lose faith, if somebody does something to you and hurts you 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, St. Peter thought 7 was a good number. How often should I forgive my brother, Lord? 7 times? My Lord said, no. 70 times, 7 times a day.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at ewtnrc.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Carrie Gress, our guest, and I'm so happy. I hope this will be I think we used to do this every couple months, have you on, Dr. Gress. That's much to our advantage. I don't know if it does you any good, but we really appreciate it when you're here. So I hope we'll start doing that again.
I love it.
Good. That's why I said it on the air, because I wanted you to have to say that. That's called pressure. You can find Dr. Gress's work at Amazon. You certainly can. You can find The Marian Option. Great book, The Marian Option. You can find The Anti-Mary. Give me the full title of The Anti-Mary, because that's an intense book.
The Anti-Mary Exposed, Rescuing the Culture from Toxic Femininity.
You can find that at Amazon, but you can also find her online, carriegress.com. You'll find her writings there, and you'll find the wonderful work she does with other, I don't know who all that was working on that, but it's a great group of people putting together Theology of Home each day. And if you want, you can get them to send you the email each morning and start your day with just a magnificent variety of articles, really extraordinary variety of articles, all consistent with and promoting a vision of life that really is better than the vision of life that you're getting on CNN or on Oprah or even on my favorite channel, because it has the world's greatest TV show, HGTV. And you probably already know. I don't have to say what the world's greatest TV show is. It's Bahamas Life. Everyone knows that. But just in case you didn't know that Bahamas Life is the best show on TV. But even better than Bahamas Life is the Catholic life, the life offered to us in Christ. And they do a great job of promoting it over there on Theology of Home.com. Let's go to an anonymous caller for Dr. Gress now. Anonymous, are you there with us?
Yes, I have a question. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I want to ask Doctor if she has in her Theology at Home book a chapter about Virgin Mary being basically the role model for all of us, role model of feminism, and how can we, if so, how can we educate young women about Mother Mary being exactly the role that we are looking for.
Yeah, you are.
Real Madonna.
That's basically Dr. Carrie Gress's entire career right there.
Yes, thank you for asking that. The Anti-Mary Exposed book, it's one of these books that the first maybe I think 4 or 5, maybe 6 chapters, I can't remember now. They're pretty dark. And then the second half of the book is all about Our Lady, and why she is this role model for us, and how it is that we can begin to relate to her. I think this is one of the real struggles that so many of us have, even as Catholics, is, how do we relate to this woman who's immaculately conceived, who's perfect, who never sinned? And I think she can feel very one-dimensional or saccharine. And so I really lay out in the second half of the book, why it is that we can approach her and with confidence that she understands how we feel, she understands the desires of our heart, and really look at those, and especially through the prism of her being loved by God the Father, her desire to do good, and her beauty. Those are really the things that animate so much of women's lives. And if you don't believe me, just go watch the Hallmark Channel. I was amazed after I wrote my book that I had really outlined these 3 different desires of women's hearts. And I had the opportunity to watch several movies on the Hallmark Channel, and all 3 of them had the exact same theme going on. And, that's a pattern the Hallmark Channel uses. But I think that they've hit on something that is really deep in a woman's heart that we don't see enough of. And that's what Our Lady can bring out in us, is to understand all of those aspects of who we are, our beauty, our desire to do good, and our relationships, and have them be in an ordered way, rather than tending towards vanity or even just misguided goodness. And this is one of the saddest things. If you look at all these women that really kicked feminism off in our culture, so many of them had huge problems with their own mothers, and they didn't really understand what it meant to be a woman, what it meant to be a daughter that was loved, what it meant to have a mother who loved them. And you can see that this brokenness was because they didn't have the mothering that they needed. They didn't have the right kind of love. And I think that's what they've perpetuated in the culture. So we have so many broken women that are really, searching for these things, and obviously looking in the wrong places. But again, Our Lady always offers us a great model of where our truest happiness lies.
Anonymous, what do you make of that?
I think that is great. Also, just thinking that, like St. John Paul also wrote these beautiful books about the dignity of women, and it's when I learned a lot, so much about Mother Mary and how she is the exceptional and the best role model for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that letter was fantastic. And I've just been a scholar of John Paul's work for a long time. And I think that he would love to see us go deeper and do more and explain her further and find different ways to reach women, talking about her, because there's plenty of soil, there's plenty of room for us to explore that and put our own stamp on it and reach women in different ways, and compelling ways, by talking about her that way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's difficult to explain to young people because they are still trying to figure out their own spirituality and faith. So that's why it's so difficult to say, look at Mother Mary, because they are not at that level yet. So
Yep, absolutely.
No, and Mary is actively kind of militated against in many among many of what Dr. Gress calls the matriarchs. Mary would be a bad example of womanhood to them, which is, I guess that tells you all what you need to know. I'm not sure. I guess you have to make sense of that, how you make sense of it. But you started off, Dr. Gress, and I want to say thank you, Anonymous. Thank you very much for the call. You earlier in the show, we had a gentleman who called and he was going to ask about this and he dropped, but I'm going to ask about it. You talked about us living in a kind of post-logic culture, and that you want to approach women not just by making arguments. And we talked about this show that's primarily what we do, is make arguments, and they're needed. I'm not denigrating what we do, but that they certainly can't be the whole story. I mean, that's not. Yeah. So could you say something about what the caller wanted to know? This gentleman who was on the line was, are you saying that women think differently than men? Women's brains work differently than men, and that women need to be appealed to differently than men?
Absolutely. I think very differently. I think even, I wrote a book years ago called Nudging Conversions. And I looked at a lot of the different conversion stories and what brought people back to the faith. Absolutely, apologetics and logic and reason are vital and very important. But I think that it's an interesting thing to see that that's usually not the way that women are brought back to the faith. There are usually triggers of relationships. There can sometimes be tragedy that triggers it, or it's just a good friend. They met another woman that helped them through a tough experience, and they couldn't figure out what was different about her. Those kinds of friendships. So, I think there absolutely are differences in the way that men and women relate to each other, which is, of course, totally unpolitically correct to say. But I think it's true, especially when we look at how important relationships are to women, and that's why something like a magazine appeals to us on so many levels, because it's very relational. You feel like you're almost friends with the people that are kind of putting it together, and that's another one of the reasons why it's so difficult to kind of break through this matriarchy, because all these women seem wonderful to each other, and they're all friends, and you don't want to sort of break up that bond that's there. Like the previous caller said, that suddenly people treated her differently because she wasn't part of their in-group. There's all these dynamics that happen among women that are hard to explain and understand, especially if you're a man. But I think we have to pay attention to those and really recognize that we need to do something when it comes something differently when we approach women than just trying to make logical arguments, using truth to get them into the church.
Do you think that there would be room for a Catholic kind of HGTV or a Catholic kind of Oprah magazine or something?
Yeah, no, I would love to see something like that, especially because if you look at the Catholic population in the United States, it's 35 million females in the United States. I mean, that's not a small number.
Wait, 35 million women Catholics in the United States?
Yes.
Wow.
35 women Catholics. So I think that that's one of the things that fascinates me, is that we haven't really even tried necessarily to do something on a national scale. And again, we have so much content. I could see doing something very seasonal or quarterly, that the Christmas issue or the fall issue or whatever. Very fundamental, because we have so much content that could go into it. I think an HGTV thing could be great. One idea that I've had for a long time, I'd love to see a show on church renovations. I just was at the new chapel down at University of Virginia. They had this church that was built in the 70s, and it just was torn down, and this incredible church was just built. And that would be sort of the perfect example of a church renovation. But the other thing that those shows do is that not only do they sort of show beauty, but they give people a vocabulary. I remember when we added on up to our own home, I think my daughter was 6 at the time. She was looking at that the house was framed in, and she said, you should put French doors over here. And that's actually where we were going to put the French doors. But at 6 years old, she'd watched enough HGTV that she knew the details, the architectural names for pieces. And I thought, what if we did that with churches? What if we actually did a reality show of these churches that are being renovated? Maybe Duncan Stroig's work. What a vocabulary all of us would develop. Different kinds of columns and pediments, and all these things that AMBO. We don't know what these things are very easily. But if we had a show like that, I can guarantee you, my 6-year-old would know all of those things, because they're just engaging, and
it makes me think
can be done so beautifully.
That's the strategy. If there is a strategy, I think it's a demonic strategy. I don't think anyone planned this out, but it's indirectly you sell the values of this ideology of modern life, modern secular life, by putting it in movies and TV shows, and but not by saying this is better, this is a better way, but so a little indirection would help us in the Catholic media. I think you're right on to something. Yeah. I like this Dr. Carrie Gress. We should have her on again.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, you got to get back to Little John and all the others. But
well, thanks so much for having me.
But I'm so glad to talk to you again. I've missed you. I think you're just a great asset to the Catholic Church in America, and I'm sure the church around the world, and I appreciate you doing this with us. Thank you, Dr. Gress.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Si.
Once again, you can find Dr. Gress's work at carriegress.com. You can also just look for Theology of Home. If you Google that, Theology of Home, you're going to end up finding the work they do every day there. It's worth getting their email. It's worth starting your day with that stuff. And you can also find Dr. Carrie Gress's books on Amazon or anywhere else where good books are sold. And tomorrow, 2 hours, open forum. You can call, you can ask any question you want. You don't even have to be nice about it. Any question you want, whether you're Catholic or not, tomorrow right here, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.